So good evening and welcome everyone. So let's begin first of all by adjusting our motivation. The best motivation is to be influenced by the mind of bodhicitta, and we want to set the motivation right so that whatever time we spend here is time well spent. So to get time or to make time is something which is becoming exceedingly rare. So whatever time we have to make the best use of it. So Geshe says, we will set together all this, the proper motivation, by reciting Refuge, Bodhicitta, and Ganalagema. Okay, so we are ready to begin the next category, which is the 20 proximate afflictions. They're called proximate afflictions because they are actually quite proximate, meaning they're very close to the root afflictions. And you can either say that they are close to those root afflictions, or you could say that they are classified under those categories. So they belong in a similar category. We will understand this better as we go through the list and examine each one of them, and you will see how a particular one in this category is close to one of the root afflictions, or it's in the general category of what we had in the root afflictions. So just to give you the whole list of those 20, we have wrath, resentment, concealment, spite, envy, avarice, deceit, guile, arrogance, violence, shamelessness, non-embarrassment, lethargy, excitation, faithlessness, laziness, negligence, forgetfulness, non-introspection, and distraction. Okay, so we begin with the first one, which is wrath. So let's explain what is wrath. Wrath is a malevolent attitude associated with anger. Okay, and then there is more than that. Okay, so let's explain the first one. It is a type of malevolent attitude. Malevolent attitude here means it's an attitude that comes from being disturbed, unhappy, uncomfortable, right? There are different things that can make us be in that state of mind. For example, illness can make you, it's like you're on edge, right? It can make you feel uncomfortable, or afflictions make you feel uncomfortable, or for example, suffering makes you feel uncomfortable. There are actually 9 different bases that can act as focal objects, that when we observe those, or when we focus on those, we generate this type of disturbed attitude. Okay, so wrath is a disturbed attitude that is associated with anger, that resides ready to harm. It functions to support taking up weapons, to punish, and so forth, and to prepare to harm. Okay, so it functions here to prepare, to make yourself prepare to cause actual harm to others, such as be ready to, raise your arms, weapons, or to inflict punishment, and so forth. Okay, so keep in mind the general idea of what is wrath. Wrath is a disturbed state of mind that makes you get ready and prepare to cause harm to others, such as, for example, hit others or strike others. So you can see actually wrath and anger are quite similar. And from our side, in most cases, we do not make the differentiation. But you can see here that anger belongs in the group of the 6 root afflictions, whilst wrath belongs in another group, the group of the 20 proximate afflictions. So what is the difference between the two? In the case of anger, you are observing the object of your anger, and you have that sense of intolerance towards the object, like you cannot bear it, you cannot tolerate it. Okay. Now, in the case of wrath, something else happens. As we say, we have this deeply disturbed attitude in where here anger has increased, has been enhanced manifold, to the point where you are, you are looking at finding a stick and so forth, because you want to actually hit the other person. You want to cause harm. You want to attack, physically attack the person. So it's at a different level. In the case of wrath, it's not just anger. It is anger that has been intensified to the point that makes you move in the direction to physically harm, physically attack someone. We come to the second one, which is resentment. Resentment is also associated with anger. So resentment is this mental attitude that does not let go of the thought of revenge. All right. So someone has done something to you, and first of all, you have become angry, and now you don't let go of your anger, and you have this thought that says, you just wait and see, I will definitely do something to cause you harm. So it's you want to retaliate. So resentment is not letting go of the idea or the wish to retaliate. So what happens here with resentment is that, as we say, that anger comes first. So why have you become angry at somebody? You have become angry because you think this person has harmed me. So this anger acts as the cause that will generate this resentment. Okay. But the thing with resentment is that your mind holds on into this anger. You will not forget of this incident. You will not forget your anger towards that person. You are not going to let go. Instead, you are waiting there for an opportunity. And actually, you think it doesn't matter how long I have to wait. I will wait until I find the right opportunity to take my revenge. And usually it takes a bit of planning, like we have all the time in the world to plan our revenge. I will do this, or, oh, I'd rather I would do that because that will be even worse, and so on and so forth. So there is time spent in planning your revenge, and during that time, you don't let go, you don't forget of your anger. Okay, so anger is the cause, and the cause might actually have happened like years ago, months ago, but you will not forget about it. You're going to hold into this and plan for your revenge, plan how you are going to get back to that person. So this is resentment. Okay, we come to the next one, which is concealment. So concealment actually has to do with hiding, trying to conceal something, try to hide something. So this is the case where someone comes and gives you some advice and says, let me give you some advice. I notice that you are doing this and this and this. You're behaving in this and this way. And actually, this is a mistake. So someone comes and talks to you about a mistake they have noticed in your behavior. But you, instead of acknowledging this mistake, you take the opposite way, the opposite, avenue. And instead, you try to hide. You try to conceal your own fault. You do this out of confusion, all right? And then what happens, because you do not acknowledge your mistakes, you try to hide your mistakes, then it means you do not confess. And if you do not confess, it means you do not purify. As a result of not confessing, not purifying, not acknowledging at all your negativity, it means your negativities increase. And in this way, you will not encounter happiness, well-being, virtue states, and so forth. So we have a scenario here where, let's say, your spiritual guide, your guru, highlights your mistakes. Highlights your mistakes means here they have a discussion with you when they tell you openly that, you've made this mistake, you've made that mistake, this is not how it should be done, and so forth. However, motivated by confusion, because remember, concealment is associated with confusion, right? So motivated by confusion, you go into the space of totally negating all this. So you don't accept that, you don't recognize, you don't accept, and you try to hide these mistakes. So as you can see here, it's a very big mistake not to recognize and acknowledge your own faults, but instead go out of your way and even try to hide them and cover up and conceal. It is very important that if we have made a mistake, if a transgression, if a negativity has occurred, this must be confessed. It must be put out in the open. Now, there are different cases. So there is a provision here that you will have to speak about whatever faults you have made to another person, or if you do not want to discuss this with another person, you always have your altar. So you approach your altar, you address the three jewels, and you have to disclose it. Disclose it here means to openly speak about it. So you're talking to the three jewels and you say, I did this and this. So you have to approach the three jewels with an open mind. It is a type of confession, and you have to openly speak about what you have done. Okay, as you say, the other option is that you have to speak about your mistake, disclose your mistake to another person. However, because there is always a possibility that you might disclose your mistake to someone who dislikes you, someone who is a great gossip, and what they will do is they will go around and actually, publicize whatever negativity you have done. And that is not necessarily the most skillful thing to do. So you don't just go out there to anybody, sharing with everybody, but you can disclose it to someone who is close to you, a dear friend, someone you can trust. So whatever negativity there is done, it has to be spoken. It has to be disclosed. Okay. Especially for the ordained, there are very specific rules about that. Negativity, infractions, and so forth have to be communicated. You have to share this. You have to speak about the mistake you have made, ideally to another ordained person, or if you cannot find another ordained person due to circumstances, location, and so forth, it is said you go up to the top of the mountain and there you speak it out in the open, out in the elements. You have to. So anyway, for the lay practitioners, as we say, you can choose, you have two options, your altar or a close friend that you trust. All right, so if you do not disclose that negativity that you've done today, if you try to keep it concealed, what happens is by tomorrow, that negativity multiplies. And then again, if the next day you don't speak about it, again, that negativity multiplies. We have a means for stopping this multiplication of negativity, and this is to recite the 100-syllable mantra of Vajrasattva 21 times. Okay. Many times in our case, not only we don't disclose the negativity, but also we do not recite the 21 times the 100-syllable mantra. And what result does that bring? It means our negativity increases. It gets like Mount Meru negativity. Okay, the next one is spite. Okay, so we're talking about a spiteful person. So in colloquial Tibetan, anger and this word sikpa, spite, are often used almost interchangeably. However, they are different things. Okay, so once again, we find that anger and hatred are the cause. So it means that they happen first, they are established first, and they give rise to a spiteful mind. So what it means to have spite. Spite is to be motivated by anger and try to find the most harsh words, right, to cause another person to be deflated, to be insulted, to be shocked, and so on and so forth. All right. So out of anger, you are trying to find the worst possible things to say to the other person in order to make them feel bad, in order to make them feel lose their confidence, and so forth. So what is happening here when we generate spite? When we generate spite, obviously you can see that we will not be able to come in contact with virtue, with happiness, with higher states. The result of a spiteful attitude is to be reborn in the hells. Because you see, when you have spite, the way you're motivated by anger, it becomes hatred. And from that point onwards, you are using almost like the most derogative swearing words in order to humiliate the other person, to deflate the other person, to make the other person lose their confidence, and so forth. So it's a very negative attitude. Okay. We come to the next one, which is envy or jealousy. Okay, so what is this? Jealousy is the attitude of a person who is attached to property, such as, for example, wealth and things like this. And they might be seeking to obtain new wealth and respect, and they're seeking homage and veneration from others. And they become deeply disturbed when it observes the excellent qualities of others. There are always others who have more or better things than we do. Some have a better house, some have a better car, some have a better physique, some are more beautiful than us, right? So the person who is jealous becomes deeply disturbed when it observes the excellent qualities of others. And due to that, they experience mental dissatisfaction and they are not capable of coming in contact with virtue and happiness and well-being. So once again, we see that jealousy is a very negative attitude. It's associated with hatred. It makes us accumulate karma that makes us unhappy in this life. And as for the future lives, it propels us to a rebirth in the lower migrations. So very bad thing. We continue to the next one, which is avarice. So avarice is intensely grasping on life's necessities due to desire for gain and respect that is associated with attachment. So as you see here, association with attachment, that gives you this intense grasping. Due to avarice, we're not able to practice generosity, to give to others. Sometimes we're not even able to enjoy that thing ourselves. So we might have food, let's say, but we don't eat it, let alone give it to somebody else. The result of this is that it makes you in the future life to lack resources, to have poverty. So if you can relax in this life and practice generosity, you will not experience poverty, that result of poverty in the future. So as we see here, avarice is this attitude of a person who, as we say, is very attached to two things. One is property and the other one is respect. And due to this type of attachment, they really grasp. And when you grasp, you cannot relinquish, you cannot give, you cannot send out any of your possessions. All right. So as you can see here, it says that grasping and keeping is a fault. So indirectly, what it's telling you is that giving, so practicing generosity, is something which is positive. So when we say here that we should give, the advice is to give because giving is something positive, we have to be quite skillful in the way that we give. It doesn't mean that you have to give away everything, all your possessions, because obviously if you do that, you will be the one who will be lacking everything, right? You become like a beggar if you give away everything. But if you notice that you have plenty or that you have excessive in some area, then it's very good to give what is excessive. So for example, let's say you have too many t-shirts, you have too many handbags, try to give one or two away, isn't it? Ideally, they said that whatever are your possessions, you should divide it into 3 portions, the 3 equal portions. One portion goes as an offering to the 3 jewels. The second portion goes as an offering to others. You practice generosity, and you only keep the third portion for your own private needs, for yourself, for your family, and so forth. Geshe says, I think that this is this is quite advanced practice if you can do that very well, but in most cases, I'm not advocating that this is what we do. However, when you have enough and when you have a little bit of excess, it's very good to give even a little. So, for example, in Tibet, there was always this custom, with things like tsampa and butter. First of all, you have to make it, to make this material, this food, right? And you have to build up your supplies. But after a certain point of building up and accumulating, it is important that you start giving. So you don't just accumulate forever. You accumulate, you build up a certain amount, and after that, you start giving. So Geshe was saying we should train like this because this is a type of training. So if you train like this, eventually you come to the point where you can easily, without any sense of loss, give away all your possessions, all your enjoyments, even your own body. We are not there yet, so we're not practicing generosity at this level, but it's good to practice in a skillful way. So as we say, there are such things as practicing generosity by giving away all your possessions or your body and so forth. Definitely, we are not at the level of practicing generosity with those things. These are practices of high-level bodhisattvas. So even if someone were to come and specifically request you to give, let's say your body or parts of your body or all your possessions away, you should not. And the reason why we say we should not is because currently we need our body, we need our possessions because we are still training and we still need to build up our accumulation and we need to complete our training. Once we progress on the path and we reach a higher level, from that point onwards, we can, once we have obtained our spiritual goals, we can practice generosity in a different way. Otherwise, if we do it too early, when it's, we're not mature yet, actually we're going to miss the opportunity to practice properly and achieve our spiritual goals. Also, when we practice generosity and we give away things, we have to be very skillful. What we give should be a gift that benefits the other person. There are people who have perverse ideas. So, for example, there are those who are seeking to commit suicide. So you do not give poison or a substance that can be used as a poison to a person like this. There are people who are violent and wish to kill others. So you do not give knives and weapons and things like this to someone who who has these ideas, right? So what we give and how much we give has to be carefully calculated. Yes. The next one in the list is deceit. So deceit is that which makes a false display of qualities that you do not possess due to attachment to respect, but also can be attachment to property, that is associated with attachment and ignorance. All right. So you don't possess qualities. So let's say you have not studied excessively, right? You don't have the necessary qualifications, but you pretend that you have these qualifications. Why? Because you're attached to respect. You want other people to respect you for what you don't have. And also because you're hoping that you will be remunerated better if people think that you have these qualities. So you deceive others, pretending you have qualities that you don't really have. So there is this whole issue that deceit supports wrong livelihood. So we know that we have 5 types of wrong livelihood. You might obtain different possessions and substances and wealth and items through wrong livelihood, but it is stated very clearly that whatever you obtain through wrong livelihood is not something that can be offered. You cannot practice generosity to others with these substances, and also these are not substances that you can offer to the 3 jewels. So deceit supports wrong livelihood, and whatever you obtain through wrong livelihood, you cannot offer it. So we are not going to explain all the 5 types of wrong livelihood, but we can give you some examples of that. One example is flattery. So you speak in such a sweet and honey-dripping manner towards someone that you hope will act as a benefactor or will give you something, isn't it? So flattery is one of them. Another one is implying in the sense of, approaching someone who has helped you in the past and saying, oh, last year you gave me this and it was just so beneficial. And if I were to receive it again, it would make my life so much better. And you go on and on about it. So you are implying, you are putting pressure. Or other ways of wrong livelihood is, again, manipulating the sponsor, and so that the sponsor is intending to give something, to give a gift to someone, and then you go and start making unpleasant comments about the possible recipient to make the donor change their mind, not give the object to them, hoping that instead they might give it to you. So you redirect the donation. So you try to do that, and so forth. You get the idea. So anyway, whatever you get through wrong livelihood is very problematic. Well, we come to the next one, which is guile. And guile here again is concealing actual faults due to attachment to property and respect. It is associated with attachment, again, and ignorance as well. Okay, so to give you an example, Geshe was saying, those who, many businessmen or those who engage in trade, right, they try to sell you something, and they are aware that there are faults in the product. There are weaknesses, faults in the product that they're trying to sell you. But instead of being honest about it, they try to hide any defects, and instead they just proclaim the incredible features and qualities of whatever it is that they're trying to flog to you. For example, Geshe was saying, you have product, and the product has a use by date, and I might go there and change the use by date. So they know that the date for the consumption of that item has expired or is expiring, but they wish to hide this, and they put a new date. And in this way, it's like, they are deceiving. They're trying to hide the fact that there's a fault here. So, in society, someone might actually become quite rich and wealthy and successful by engaging in this type of trade where obviously they have to employ these means, the means of hiding the mistake of all the weaknesses of whatever product it is they're trying to sell, and only talking about or exaggerating actually about its qualities. So Geshe was saying often when you look at the labels that they put on different products, if you read these labels, it only says good things about them, right? So it is good for this, it is good for that, it is good for the other. You read this and you're amazed, like, this is an amazing product, isn't it? So again, this is, those labels are exaggerating or even inventing qualities that they are not there. So as we say, in society, you might become successful and wealthy like this, and you would be praised. However, according to the Dharma, this is negative action because it is guile. It's a negative mental factor. Okay, so as we say here, with guile comes a lot of deception, there come a few lies and so forth. But the proper way to think about it is to think, I'm right next to the Buddhas. The Buddhas are everywhere. The Buddhas know everything. The Buddhas know the 3 times. So there is no lying or there is no deception that can bypass the Buddha. The Buddha knows exactly everything. So if you cultivate this awareness, this recognition that the Buddha is everywhere, the Buddha is next to me right now, this has a positive effect because it stops you from lying, from engaging in guile, in different means of deception. Also, in Bodhisattva's ways of life, Master Shantideva says, I should always cultivate the thought, I'm right next to the Buddhas and the Bodhisattvas that can see everything unimpededly. So it's very beneficial to think in this way. So in terms of deceit and guile, the last 2 mental factors we have been discussing about, they prevent us in this life from attaining proper instruction. And in future lives, they create obstacles so that we will not meet with Mahayana teachers. And if we do not meet with Mahayana teachers, again, we will not receive instructions and guidance and so forth. So for that reason, it's very important to abandon them. We come to number 9, which is arrogance. So arrogance is joy and mental pleasure associated with attachment. And it arises from seeing signs of health, long life, youthful energy, worldly prosperity, and so forth. All right. So what happens is you look at yourself and you say, oh, I'm healthy, I'm youthful, I am strong, I am wealthy. And that makes you arrogant, right? So your mind is inflated. You have an inflated mind, and this is arrogance. Arrogance and pride have some similarities. So you do have this inflated mind. However, in the case of pride, this is generated because you are comparing yourself with others. And you think, I am better than them. I have more than them, right? So even if we are equal, even if we have the same things, still I am better than them. So with pride, you're comparing yourself with others, and there is that competitiveness that comes. Whilst arrogance, you're not comparing yourself to anybody else. You're just observing, let's say, your wealth or your youth or your good health, and you think, oh, how good, I'm doing well here. So that's arrogance. So let's look at the negative effects of arrogance. It says that arrogance is the root of carelessness. All right. So it means you give away you lose any caution. if you are an arrogant person, you really think you are strong, you have the wealth, you have the body, you have the right age, you have the right power, so nothing, you think you are invincible. So you think nothing will get to you. And therefore you are careless. You're not very careful. You don't have conscientiousness. Okay, that's number one. Number two is you lose your humility. So you are not respectful towards other people. And the third one, it says that if you have arrogance because of this attitude, your obtainment of liberation becomes very difficult. It pushes the obtainment of liberation very far into the future. Okay, number 10 in the list is violence. So what is violence? Violence is lack of altruism, lack of compassion, lack of affection that is associated with anger. And it functions to harm and injure other people, all right? So we say that violence brings about harm. Non-violence is non-harm. Non-violence is compassion and affection and mercy for others, right? So here again in violence, there is that attitude that you consider yourself to be high, important, and others, the recipients of your violence, to be unimportant, to be very small, all right? So there is that sense of that inflated sense about yourself, that you're very important. Okay, so we're coming to the end of this session, and this will be our last class for the year, because there are many activities that need to be organized in the center, and therefore we need to make time for all these activities. So this is going to be the last class, but it is not very auspicious to finish halfway the 20 proximate, afflicted mental factors. It's not good to finish on such a negative note. So Geshe would like, for the sake of auspiciousness, to speak a little bit about emptiness, the benefit, the preciousness of emptiness, because it's auspicious to finish on a high note with the class. Okay. So if we look in the sutra, it says that since sentient beings remain in cyclic existence due to the ignorance about the profound view of emptiness, the Buddha spoke about the profound, subtle meaning of emptiness using hundreds of reasoning in order to instill understanding of this. All right, so hundreds of reasoning here. Don't think that it only means 100, exactly the number 100. It means a lot, many different types of reasoning to make sure that living beings understand that profound subject. Okay, so whilst we remain in cyclic existence, we're experiencing suffering, problems, and dissatisfaction. And all of them, they come to afflictions. All of these afflictions come from the ignorance of self-grasping, the ignorance of true grasping. So the question is, first question is, can that ignorance of self-grasping be eliminated? Can it be removed? And the answer is that yes, it can be removed because it is a mistaken type of mind. But how are we going to remove it? How are we going to eliminate it? We have to generate a type of wisdom that has an understanding that is the direct opposite of what that mistaken mind thinks. So we need to generate the wisdom realizing selflessness, the wisdom realizing the profound meaning of emptiness. That is the reason why we must generate it, and it is very important to do so. So Geshe says, I would like to finish this year's class with this auspicious verse, talking about the profound meaning and the importance of emptiness.